Sage, check. Mushroom coffee, check. My sense of sanity, check. All things that you need when we're about to talk about one of the most wild signs of astrology. I'm just kidding, relax. I know how you Aries can get. Chill out. Hola beautiful souls, welcome back or welcome to my channel, where we merge the cosmos with self-development using astrology, spirituality, and wellness to become our highest selves every day. If that sounds like something you're interested, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, as well as follow me on other social media platforms so you can get a deeper look into my insight and into my life. You can now also sign up for my free newsletter so you can get more life updates, more cosmic readings, etc. from yours truly. And you can also head down to the description box and find my chart readings, as well as a link to a free astrology cheat sheet that I created just for you guys to make these videos easier to understand for you. We're going to start the video with an introduction to the sun in astrology, so that way you have a better understanding of the energy that it holds and why exactly it's so important for us to know about our sun sign. Then we're going to move into some general traits about the Aries sun. And we'll finish the video with a couple empowering tips for any of you that are an Aries sun, or you know somebody who is and you want to know how to better support them. But before we begin, I'm going to hand it off to past Marisa so she can explain why the sun sign is so important and what the sun means in astrology. I feel like the sun often gets overlooked in modern astrology as not being that important. Whereas all of the personal planets are highly important to who we are, the sun is our soul. It is what we always connect back to in this lifetime. Therefore, it is at the center of our lives. It always will be, and nothing can negate that. So it's important that we know, that we truly know our sun sign. First, let's talk about what the sun means in astrology. The sun is one of the 2 luminaries in astrology that are considered one of the 9 planets in astrology that shape who we are. The sun is considered the planet of our individual identity and the ego self. The placement of the sun in our birth chart governs our identity as an individual, what makes us unique and separates us from everyone else. The symbol of the sun actually showcases this, as the circle itself represents infinity and everything being intertwined, whereas the dot in the middle represents the separate self. It is through our sun sign that we're able to uncover our personal identity, who we truly are at our core without the influence of anything or anyone else. It indicates where we find our sense of personal power, purpose, and overall direction in life. The sun gives life, so the sun sign is what gives us life, what makes us feel fulfilled, and what makes us glow. The sun is literally where we derive our life force energy. Now let's talk about the general traits of somebody who has sun in Aries. But before we dive into the traits, it's important to remember that Aries is the cardinal fire sign, ruled by Mars, symbolized by the ram. Number 1. Aries is considered the quote-unquote youngest sign of the zodiac, making them the most youthful, infant-like of all the signs. The beauty of a sign like Aries is the fact that it begins the whole entire zodiac cycle. So the astrological new year actually begins with Aries season, symbolizing the freshness of spring, symbolizing the renewal and the life that renewal can bring. Because of this, Aries very much embodies bringing things to life, bringing things into fruition. And in order to do so, you have to have the bravery to take that first step, even if you might stumble. And this is where they're very quote-unquote infant-like, even though that can sound like an insult, it's not. They're just infant-like in the way that they're able to step out into the world with a perspective that is very fresh and new. Even if an Aries is jaded or tainted by the world, like many of us tend to become when we grow older, they still have the courage to step out of their comfort zone or to take initiative or move towards something or speak on something that a lot of people might be scared to do. They tend to see the world through the eyes of a new child, of an infant that just learned how to walk and is excited to continue taking steps forward even if they know they might fall. That is the beauty and the innocence of the Aries mindset and the Aries persona. It is also this infant-like persona that gives them the ability to be so unique and move to the beat of their own drum as well. Oftentimes, they're not as concerned with what people think because they are so free-spirited. They can't help but move to the beat of their own drum because, again, that's what kids do. Before kids are so jaded by the judgments of others, they tend to dress how they want, speak how they want, speak their mind, ask what they want, do what they want, and they tend to play around. This can be a very freeing energy to be around if Aries energy is being channeled positively, because it can encourage others to be themselves too, because they are the type of person that will just suddenly break out into an animated dance in response to something you said, just because that's what they feel moving through their body. They're very connected to that raw, new life force energy that often lives strongly in children only. Aries tends to carry this excited, free energy throughout their entire lives. And in my opinion, it's one of the things that makes Aries a very powerful force to be reckoned with. Number 2, they are often viewed as the relentless warrior of astrology, being connected to their natural instincts and life force energy. It actually goes so much deeper than the warrior archetype. Being so connected to this raw life energy gives Aries an overlooked connection to their spiritual side and their intuition. It is very common that we talk about Aries being the most barbaric, violent, temperamental sign because they're associated with Mars. Mars is associated with the god of war and is also the planet of physical assertion. It's the planet that tells us how we exert our raw life force energy. That's why Mars is often connected to our passion and our sensuality and how we express it, how we pursue our sexuality and how we pursue our passions, because Mars is all about physical movement, physical pursuit of something. And because Aries is ruled by Mars and also rules over the first house in astrology, and if you want to know more about the first house, I do have a video on that as well. But because it rules over that realm of our existence, Aries is so connected to that inner fire and that inner passion. Aries very much represents the foundation of our existence, where we begin, where we step off of before life colors us in many different ways. Aries is the foundation of who we are and our passion. And Mars tells us what our fire is. What is the fire that keeps us going? What is the fire that drives us forward? And how do we tame that fire? How do we tend to it? How do we move it forward or expand it? How are we connected to that fire? This is what Mars really represents. Even though that does tend to imply that Aries can be a temperamental sign because they are so connected to that inner passion and that inner fire, it's easy for the fire to get blown out of proportion and to turn into a wildfire if we're not careful. However, it is also this connection to that raw inner sense of who they are that allows them to be very spiritually connected. And this is not talked about enough, because a lot of times kids, going back to the previous point we were talking about, children tend to be the embodiment of what it's like to live from that raw inner spark and that raw inner fire before it is overly tamed or caged in or even put out by the world. Because of that, we often consider kids to be very magical in their own way. They tend to remind us what it's like to have fun, what it's like not to care what other people think. But most importantly, they often show us what it's like to be so connected to your energy. When they say kids are the most likely to have paranormal experiences, it's because they have not yet distanced themselves from that internal spiritual instinct that we all inherently have. Because Aries embodies that infant-like, childlike, youthful energy, and the connection to that raw life force before it is put out by the world, they often showcase this and use this, whether unconsciously or consciously, throughout their entire lives. Aries is amazing at making decisions based on quick instinct. They may not know yet, they may not think logically, and again, this is what can contribute to their temperament and losing their temper if they're not careful, because they may not think before they act. However, this is also what gives them a strong spiritual and instinctual connection to what they really feel, what they really want, and what the universe is telling them, or what God is telling them, whatever you believe in. They have like a direct lifeline to that energy, and it happens for them. It downloads into their body so quick, and they tend to react on it so quick. This is another thing that can make them lethal, because a lot of people will spend a lot of time stagnating or overthinking. They may have that initial gut instinct, but then they may question it and move away from it or not act on it out of various reasons. Aries often, it can happen in 5 seconds. They can have a download in their instincts. They can tell what they want. They can feel it spiritually. They can feel it in their soul, and they will move accordingly. Number 3, they often have a seemingly endless supply of physical energy, and it needs to be expressed in healthy ways, especially creatively. This kind of ties into the previous 2 points as well, but Aries is the fire sign. They are one of the fire signs. Meaning, again, they're even more connected to that raw life force energy, because Mars is a fiery planet. Mars is the planet directly connected to that life force energy as well, and fire only adds onto it. Fire is physical movement. When you think of a fire, think of the way that it sways, the way that it crackles, and the way that it burns. We can imagine a fire in ourselves when we want to move, when we want to run, when something ignites us physically. It feels like a fire internally. That's the best way to describe it. So quite literally, that is what the element fire represents in astrology. So with Aries being a fire sign that is also connected to Mars, they can be very physically active. They can have so much physical energy. I have met a few Aries that literally function like the Energizer Bunny. I'm not even kidding. Literally the Energizer Bunny. And I, as a Pisces, one of the oldest, sleepiest signs of the zodiac, I would love to have even a teeny weeny ounce of your guys' energy for all my Aries watching this. It obviously depends on the rest of the birth chart as well, exactly how this energy is being channeled, what area of life it's being channeled in. However, in some way or another, Aries is heavily connected to that physical vitality that some of us can be very disconnected from. For example, me being a Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and it's also representative of basically the transcendence of humanity. And because of that, Pisces can be very far removed from the physical realm. And that's why a lot of Pisces can get very lost in the internal space, in the head space, in the emotional space. They can get very caught in the intangible, which can actually exhaust them and kind of distract them from reality and distract them from what's going on physically. Aries is the opposite. Aries is completely connected to everything when it comes to our physical energy. Part of it is intangible because we can't see our adrenaline. We can't see that passion and that spark that moves within us. However, it is often felt physically. So Aries is super connected to that physical feeling of that fire and that spark that ignites within us. Because of that, they often need to move their bodies a lot. They need to have some type of stimulation and physical activity on a regular basis. Even if you're an Aries watching this and you're like,
no, I don't like working out, and I don't like sports, and I don't like this and that.
No. I will say this time and time again. Our placements are not always telling us what we like to do naturally and how we are naturally. A lot of times they're telling us what we need to do in order to feel better. So even if you're an Aries that doesn't necessarily like physical movement and you actually like being lazy, I guarantee that you need physical movement in your life in some way to feel healthier and to feel more fulfilled and to feel less anxious. A lot of times, if a sign has a lot of energy that needs to be transmuted in some way that is healthy for them, but they're not transmuting it, that energy can then bottle up and manifest in a way that is damaging, such as anxiety. If you have so much energizing fire moving through your body that you're not expressing in any way and you're not transmuting in any way, it's going to have to vibrate within you some other way. This can also make you more prone to anger outbursts. An Aries that is more angry and temperamental is probably not finding a way to move this energy through them in a healthy manner. Therefore, it's manifesting and showing up in negative ways. Number 4, they tend to unapologetically forge new pathways and find their way forward however they see fit. Going back to the fact that Aries moves to the beat of their own drum and they have this childlike, youthful energy towards life, they do not give a about what you think or what anybody's telling them. When they have their sights set on something, they're going to go after it. It does not matter if you try to monitor them, if you try to cage them in. They are going to rebel and they are going to do what they want. They're going to find a way. And they are not afraid to do so. They're not afraid of what people think. They're not afraid of seeming weird, of seeming crazy, whatever the case may be. And this comes from them being a cardinal sign. Cardinal signs are known for being the initiators or leaders of some kind in the zodiac. With every cardinal sign, this tendency towards leadership or initiator energy shows up differently. With Aries specifically, it's a very outward focused energy. Their cardinal energy really shows up in the way that they forge new pathways unapologetically. A lot of Aries will be known for doing things out of the box and doing things people have never seen before, simply because they are not afraid to express that innate passion and their inner uniqueness that other people are maybe filtering, that other people are afraid to express. Because of this, this can naturally make Aries an influential person and a leader for many. They can naturally be somebody that people want to follow because people will admire the way that they naturally express themselves, the way that they're not afraid to do things differently, the way that they carried out a vision that no one's ever carried out before. Their ambition, their ability to dream, all of this can be very aspirational to a lot of people. Again, making Aries a true cardinal sign because they may become a leader of some kind or a public influence of some kind without even trying, just by being themselves. A great example of an Aries that definitely shocked the world, and no matter what your personal opinions are on this, Lil Nas X's video. I don't know if you guys remember that music video. I forgot the name of the song, but I'll put like a little clip here, a little picture here. But that music video had the world on fire, quite literally. I mean, that's ironic because, you know, Aries, fire, you know, but that music video had the world like on fire. People were like, what is he going on? It was very polarizing. And this is a perfect example also of how Aries can be extremely polarizing because they're so unapologetic about the way that they move to the beat of their own drum. They really do not care. If anything, they can actually get satisfaction out of the tension and out of the argumentation and the hatred that can come out of them being a polarizing force. Aries does not shy away from a challenge, nor do they shy away from conflict. Number 5. Aries will meet every challenge head on and assertively. Again, Aries is ruled by the ram. The ram is very representative of the headstrong way that Aries can barrel forward and take things on without caring about any obstacles that might be in the way, anyone who might be in the way. They can quite literally take it head on, bulldoze through it without a second thought. This symbol can definitely imply as well that Aries can be a conflict-driven sign. And whereas that might be true, I also think that they're just not afraid of conflict. Like I said in the previous point, they may not want conflict, but they will garner it simply because they can seem abrasive with the way that they speak their mind or the way that they make decisions. They can unintentionally yet unapologetically ruffle feathers. They can rub people the wrong way by being that way. And if they do, so be it. They are ready to take you on like the ram if you question them or if you try to go against them in some way, and they feel the need to then have it escalate to conflict in which they will happily resolve. Now let's discuss a couple empowering tips for anybody who has an Aries sun sign, or if you know somebody who does. Number 1, they need physical expression and movement to channel/release their constant overflow of raw, vital energy. Again, we discussed this a bit earlier in the video, and everything I said holds true. I just want to add that the type of physical activity that you want to engage in order to do this will heavily depend on who you are. For some of you, it may just be taking walks every day out in nature, especially if maybe you have some earth placements that are coupled with your Aries sun. Now, if you are a true Aries through and through and you have a lot of Aries energy, I will always recommend that Aries takes on some type of sports or physical activity that allows them to engage in controlled conflict, healthy, controlled, productive conflict, such as boxing or mixed martial arts or things like that. Those things can really help you get out some of that tension, some of that desire for conflict, because I don't care what Aries say. A lot of Aries have a desire for conflict, whether it's verbal or physical. That energy is not a bad thing. It just needs to be tamed. It's just part of the fire that needs to be tamed in a way that is healthy and productive for the individual. Number 2, Aries may find themselves perpetuating their own toxic paths, situations, or behaviors, and they need to become mindful of this. I spoke a lot about the way that Aries traits can be channeled very positively and the way that it can really make them a brutal force to be reckoned with, and the way that it can make them so powerful, so productive, and so aspirational. However, we cannot ignore the way that these traits can channel themselves a bit on the darker side. If they're not careful, Aries can contribute to their own toxic pathways. The way Aries can be a very toxic sign a lot of times is if they do not check their own desire for conflict, if they become conflicted with everything, if they lose their temper, if they don't tame that inner fire and they let the fire just kind of mow over everything in their path, or if they feed too much into their tendency towards impulsivity, being such a youthful, childlike energy can cause this person to have very impulsive behaviors. And that impulsiveness can channel itself through physical actions and decisions that they'll regret, choices that are not the smartest, activities that are damaging to them. Sorry, I'm so popular. Aries needs to become mindful of that possibility. And if you're not careful, if you're too caught up in your own ego, which a lot of the fire signs, really all the fire signs, have kind of a big ego challenge that they have to overcome within themselves, and the ego shows up differently for every fire sign. For Aries, it is that rebellious, I'm going to do what I want energy, and if somebody challenges that, they will confront it or they will not have it. However, constructive criticism is essential to all of our lives. Trusting that people are trying to talk to you in a way that is constructive, in a way that is positive, in a way that is loving. Aries can struggle to embrace that not everything in life has to be conflicting. It doesn't always have to be argumentative or be taken abrasively. But if their ego is too front and center stage, they can have a tendency to automatically take things in a way that is damaging to themselves. And they then will perpetuate the cycle by immaturely reacting to the situation, causing an argument, and never fixing themselves, never doing the inner work on themselves, because they're like,
that person can't tell me what to do. They can't say this and that, or like, they just always hate me. People always hate me.
They can really have that type of mentality, which can harm them moving forward if they're not careful. Because this is the sign of conflict and war, There can also be an internal war. It's not always that they're trying to cause conflict and chaos on the outside. It can actually be within themselves. And this is another reason it's important to transmute your energy physically, because if you keep it bottled up, you can have an internal war going on. I have found that Aries can be somewhat of a self-harm sign. So unlike Pisces, Pisces can be self-harm and self-sacrifice in that way, and they can kind of be the martyr. Aries has a similar energy, but it's more so that instead of sometimes taking the conflict and the anger out on other people, they can bottle it up internally, and they can instead harm themselves, whether they are harming themselves emotionally because they're being hard on themselves, they have all these angry thoughts towards themselves, or whether they're actually, and trigger warning for any of you, this topic may be sensitive, but if they are actually harming themselves physically, and I can't say exactly what I mean, but I'm sure some of you can guess, that can be a huge Aries thing, because they can associate pain with physical resolution of whatever they're dealing with emotionally. That can sometimes be the automatic solution or bridge that goes on in an Aries mind. This is why if they feel the pull to fight somebody or to argue with somebody, a lot of times they won't ignore it. But that can also channel itself internally and cause them to harm themselves as well, and to fight themselves, whatever that may look like. And that is very dangerous territory. So again, that's why it's so vital that you move yourself physically, that you move that energy on a daily basis, and you learn how to take a step back and look at a situation without automatically reacting to your emotions. It's kind of like when you put a product in your shopping cart online and you get all excited and you think like, oh, I want to buy this, I have to buy this, I have to have it. But they give you the advice of taking a step back and waiting like 24 hours, 48 hours. And then if you still find that you want or need the item, then you purchase it. Same thing with your emotions. Do not react right away off of that initial fire, because you may regret it. Learn to step back, observe it, and this will take time, practice and patience, but definitely learn to step back and be slower with yourself. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, and be sure to follow me on social media so that way you don't miss anything. You can subscribe to my free newsletter and download my free astrology cheat sheet if you are a beginner, or even if you're well versed in astrology and you just want a nice reference point. It is perfect for that. But until I see you guys next time, thank you so much for being here, and you can watch the suggested videos until I release a new one. Adios.